What's up, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name's Leah, and let's recap and review Capote versus the Swans. This is season 2 of Feud, episode 6. So let's get into it. All right, y'all. So the episode opens up and it's 1978, and we see CZ and Truman hanging out, and they're going to their favorite hat store. Where when they get to the hat store, they find out that it's closing, and CZ wanted to go there to buy like gardening hats. And throughout this whole entire episode, we're basically seeing that they're all coming to the realization that they're getting older, or that they are the old generation now, that the way they used to be, they can no longer be that anymore. Like, youth is fleeting. And pretty much they're at the hat store like, oh my God, like, you're really leaving. To the owner of the store, he's like, yeah, I wanted to retire, but this wasn't the way I wanted to retire after 44 years. But people just aren't into like hats like that anymore. You know, the style is changing. Then Truman asks CZ, like, well, how's Babe? And Babe is like, well, the cancer hasn't really spread anywhere, so she seems to be good. And Truman was like, oh, I guess her cold heart pretty much stopped the cancer from spreading. And CZ's like, Truman, don't be like that. And he's like, well, basically, girl, she threw me away. She threw me away. But he ends up buying a hat. He's like, you know what? I gotta go. I gotta go meet Kate. You remember, that was John's daughter. She was like, I gotta go meet Kate. And at the hair salon. So while they're at the hair salon, she's getting like this 1950s hairstyle, reminiscent of like Babe. And what you start to realize is like Truman is kind of trying to turn Kate into Babe, or make her look like a lookalike. And Kate's not really comfortable with it. Like, she's sitting in the chair at the salon, kind of like feeling like, this looks old, I look matronly, like this is not how it's supposed to be. And so they end up leaving. We find out that Kate has gotten a photo shoot with this really well-known photographer named Dickie. And then as they walk up into Coke, because that's where they're gonna go back to their favorite restaurant and go get something to eat, everybody is staring at Kate. All the old ladies is hating on Miss Kate. Like, they just looking at her like, who does she think she is? Walking up in here, like, they're just staring. So Kate ends up kind of telling Truman she doesn't really like going to hang out with him at his parties because she finds them boring. And he was like, well, if you want to become a great writer, then you need to learn the art of eavesdropping, because it adds and aids in your like creative process. So while they're at Cote, we end up seeing Slim and Lee there, and they pretty much hating on Truman and Kate, because like Lee is like, why does he keep coming to this restaurant? Why does he keep showing his face when he knows all of us hate him? So they're just seething at Truman still being able to like enter establishments that they're a part of. And while they're sitting at the table, we find out that not Kate, what's her name? Lee is about to marry some man, where she was just like, I don't really care about the money. The sex is great. And Slim is like, well, girl, you need to, because you having money problems isn't a good look. Like, mm-mm. And so they end up leaving because like Lee was like, maybe we should make a scene. And no, I think Slim wanted to make a scene, and Lee was like, girl, don't do that. It's not that deep. But Lee and Slim leave, and Truman does his Trumanisms where he's like, hey girls, and Slim walks, like, doesn't even come to the table, but Lee walks over to the table, and she basically makes fun of Kate's hair, pretty much being like, sweetheart, like, your hair probably will look wonderful down, like, this ain't it. This, mm-mm. And then Truman's like, well, Lee, let's make sure we catch up. And Lee's like, all right, just call me, Truman. Knowing good and well she don't want to hear what he has to say. So they get to the photo shoot, and Dickie, the photographer, is looking at Kate's hair like, sweetheart, did you just step out of like a time machine? And they pull her hair down. She looked great with like her hair down. While Kate is getting ready by the hairdresser, you see Truman and Dickie having a conversation. And it seems like everybody wants Truman to finish the book. And everyone's also telling Truman, bro, why are you letting these broads really take you there? Like, we're in a new day and age. They are legit like nobodies anymore. Why are you like letting them play in your face like this? And Like it's just crazy how much people like had his back, but the ones that he really wanted to like be there for him really didn't. Like those are the ones that hated him. So Dickie is just like, yeah, Truman, you definitely need to finish your book. Like everybody's waiting to hear your book. So then we see CZ and Truman at the club. They at a disco. Mind you, they should have made a warning because the way them strobe lights were going, I was like, let me back up from the TV. Let me back all the way up from the TV. Gonna give myself an epileptic shock, giving me a seizure. So they're at the club, and CZ is like, "Can we sit down?" And I don't even blame her. Like the club is fun. Like even when I was like a lot younger, going to the club, it was fun. But after a while, like your feet do start to hurt. Like even now, if I'm going to the club, I need a booth. I need a section. Okay. I might dance to 2, 3 songs and then your girl wants to sit down and drink. you know, have somebody buy me a drink. But like legit, I don't know how certain people stay on the dance floor all night because the way my feet hurt after like a good 2 or 3, especially if I'm dancing, yeah, I need to sit down. I need a booth. We need a table. I need a section. I need something. Okay. So CZ is ready to leave, and they're like, "No, let's go." And Truman's just kind of like, "I'm having a weird." She was like, "The art of it is you don't stop moving." I said, "Okay." So they end up going back to the restaurant the next day, and CZ's kind of upset because they're on the front page of the paper, and I think it was like the title was like "Disco's Not Dead" or something, or "At the Disco." And CZ was like, "I look like somebody's grandmother at the club." And Truman was like, "Well, I still feel like I'm 30 and I'm not about to like I'm not about to succumb to age. Like I still want to have a good time." So he was like, maybe that's the art of not getting old, is to still enjoy life and have a good time. I said, I guess so, Truman. So then we get this scene of Kate going to Truman's house, and Truman is drunk on the phone. He drank a whole bottle of sake, and mind you, sake creeps up on you. It really does. And Kate has groceries and basically telling Truman like, the lady that you have the tab with, you 2 months late, and she want to know where you gonna pay on your stuff. And then Kate ends up breaking down because she was like, Truman, you promised me that you would start writing again. And Truman was like, girl, I promised to get you. Like Truman is being mean to her, basically saying, how dare you try to tell me what to do when what I promised you was getting you modeling gigs, which I'm doing, putting you in front of the right people, which I'm doing. So how dare you tell me I need to write? And then Kate starts crying, and she ends up saying like, you're just like my dad. And Truman's like, yeah, you're right, I am. But he's getting drunk because he's nervous because he has another show appearance. And he was like, the last time I was on the TV, I was drunk and I made the funniest joke about such and such. And now, like, people want to know about my feud. I'm no longer known for writing. I'm making money off of a persona, which is sad because I think Truman is really passionate about writing, but because of what happened, I think he's afraid, as well as it's just like I don't know if he does. I mean, I wonder if he's like, if I keep writing this book, or like, will I continue to lose everything, pretty much? So being a persona is easier because you're getting paid just to talk trash about people, but it's also horrible for his image. So next thing you know, we have this scene with the ladies. It's CZ, it's Lee, it's Slim, and it's Babe, and they're sitting at the table. They're talking about Gore Vidal, and I guess Truman says some like outlandish things about him that are probably true, but basically he said Gore Vidal groped Lee's sister Jackie O. And Gore Vidal is suing because he's like, that's defamation pretty much if you don't have any proof. And everyone was like, well, Lee, are you going to help him out? Because Lee was the one that told Truman this story. And she's like, no, I'm not going to help him. And then she says the F word, fighting, how disgusting. I'm not getting involved. And CZ gets pissed, but she doesn't say anything. So it's just like, if you weren't going to say anything to her, then I don't think you should be able to talk about it. It's like, girl, you should have checked her right then and there if you thought what she said was disgusting. So then we see Babe and CZ going to like a department store. And CZ is going off. She was like, to call them that, word. Like, gay men have always been by our side when we needed handlers, when we needed people walking with us, when we could let down our armor. And then Babe is like, I don't think the new girls of this world need armor. They're liberated. Pretty much showing the difference between like when they were younger versus now. And she was just disgusted by what CZ said. And they're at the department store because Babe wants to get gloves because I guess the chemo scars are like the bruising of chemo is starting to like show. And Bill made a comment about it. And so now Babe wants to put on gloves, but they can't find the glove department anymore. So they see one of the girls at the register and she's like, they're like, okay, so where the gloves at? And the lady's like, oh, we don't have a glove department anymore. And the lady that they were looking for, she actually retired. So Babe and CZ are like, oh, and they're starting to realize, it's like I said, it's showing them that the times are changing, that they're no longer the it girls. And either get along or like get out pretty much. So, because of what Truman said about Gore Vidal, he ran to LA to go back to Johnny Carson's ex-wife's house. Because basically, Joanne basically allows Truman to use her house as a safe ground. Honestly, I feel like Truman probably would have did better if he would have just stayed in LA. But it's also, I think, pride and ego and like the hope that he had that he would probably get back with these women and start back where he was like not the it boy, but like everybody wanted to be around Truman because of maybe it is the it boy. But I mean, maybe running to LA is kind of like admitting defeat. So while he's at Joanne's house, I guess the garbage disposal messes up. So he pretty much calls the handyman. Really cute guy. And Truman basically tells him, like, do you want to get your what suck? I said, Truman, okay, sir. Like, stop. And then the guy ends up telling him that he actually lets him do it. And he's like, that was the best BJ I ever had. Like, I'm impressed. And so Truman says, oh, I learned how to do I learned that technique from one of my friends who like learned it from some Frenchmen. This man gonna say, oh, well, where is France? And and Truman was like, in Europe. And he was like, oh, I've been there. I went to Korea. I said, two different places, sir. Two different areas. But Truman wasn't gonna tell that man that after he blew him off. So we then end up seeing Truman and the guy like on a Harley together. We find out that the guy's name is Rick and that he used to live in the Midwest, but he ran away from his fiance and he decided to live in LA, and he's like a handyman. He knows how to fix like everything. And so Truman is telling him this story about this woman who I think she said her name is like Minnie. I think he said Plaza or Plex, whatever. The lady never pooped in front of her husband. So while they were on a yacht trip for a month, she held her poop for a month and was so constipated that she had to get a suppository. And she ended up pooping 13 pounds worth of fecal matter. Crazy. It ain't never that deep. If I can't poop in front of my man, we don't need to be together. Simple as that. So Truman and him are like really bonding. He starts going on like work trips and all of that, like his different work things for the day. So Truman pretty much brings him back to LA. And I'm like, Truman, why you always bringing men back? I mean, Rick was better than John because Rick wasn't abusive and beating on Truman's ass. But it's just like Truman is always taking these young men who are like trying to find themselves. And like, it doesn't make sense. He should have just stayed with Jack, but I think Jack was too real for Truman because Jack would tell Truman about himself and he didn't like that. So we see Rick, CZ, Jack, and Kate all and Truman at dinner. And you can tell the rest of them are just looking at Truman like, this who you really want to mess with? This who you really want to be with, sir? And they're making fun of him. Well, not really making fun of Rick, but they're just looking at Rick like Rick is just explaining to them how to fix like air conditioning units. And it's just kind of like, these are not the people that Rick needs to be like. This is not Rick's community, Truman. So then we get this scene of Truman with his lawyer, and everyone is trying to tell Truman, just apologize to Gore. Just apologize to Gore and he will drop the defamation lawsuit or stop suing you. And Truman is like, no, I don't want to apologize. Like, Lee will testify for me. And the Truman's lawyer, Bert, is like, we can't get in contact with Lee. And honestly, people always get funny when the courts get involved. So I don't think that's going to happen. And so Truman's like, you know what, let me just call CZ. So Truman calls CZ, and CZ was like in the kitchen helping her daughter like make like food for like her class, and basically tells Truman Lee is not going to help you. Like, she doesn't want to help you. And then she ends up saying like, Truman, and then I think Truman is like, well, why does she want to help me? And CZ is like, well, Truman, this is what she said about you. And she tells him how Lee said ill, like, to, the F words, fighting, how disgusting, how savage, like, I don't want to be involved. And Truman is really taken aback. Like, he's just like, oh, like, she really don't fool with me like that. But it's just kind of like, Truman, why do you, it's him wanting to be accepted by them that is crazy to me, because it's like they are really giving you their asses to kiss. Like, I would not want, like, even if I did mess up, I wouldn't be groveling this much or expecting this much out of these people. And then the lawyer even tells Truman, you need to finish that book because the publishing company is really coming at me. He's like, go to my house in Boca, sober up and write this damn book, Truman. And I'm like, yeah, Truman, write this book. Write the book. So then we see this scene of Jack, Truman, Rick, the handyman, and Kate in like the park walking around. And Jack and Truman are just talking about how they do like the gays in the high society. And Truman's like, they basically treat us like Pomeranians. Like, the moment we bite back, we get sent to the pound. And then Jack is like, Truman, I don't think you understand how much of a blessing it is that you did this. Like, you broke the chain of being attached to these people. Like, you thought they cared about you, but Truman, it truly was a mirage. Like, stop allowing these women to do this to you. Like let it go. Like, really move on. And it's just crazy how so many people are like telling him like, these women aren't worth the energy that you're giving them. Just move on from them, Truman. So as they're walking, it looked like Kate and Rick were flirting. They actually made a cute couple. And we find out that Jack is going back to Switzerland so he can finish his book. But he's like, Truman, I'm always going to be here for you, bro. Just know that I'm always going to be there for you. So then we see this scene of Truman at like, I guess at a plastic surgeon, and he's trying to get work done because he just does not look how old, like he does not like how old he looks. Like, there was a scene of him laying in bed with Rick, and he was looking at his hands and telling Rick like, your hands are so soft, look at mine, like with liver spots and wrinkles, and I hate it. And Andy Warhol was on the Love Boat, I guess. And so we get this scene where Truman is, like I said, at the doctor's, and the doctor was like, okay, I can schedule for this time. But then he was like, how much pills are you taking? And the doctor is even interested in Truman finishing his book. Truman has a bag like a pharmacist, okay? Nothing but pills. And the pharmacist was like, this one is illegal. How did you get this pill? Like, these pills. And he's like, Truman, you can't be taking all of this if I do this procedure because you might go into respiratory arrest. Like, what are you doing? So Truman's like, okay, like he's telling himself he's gonna like be careful with it because he still wants to get the procedure done to make himself look young. So then when he gets back to his apartment, Rick is basically telling Truman, I got to leave. Like, I miss my fiance. And Truman is like, I want to be mad at you. I want to talk cash money ish to you, but I can't. I guess because Rick is sweet. Like, Rick wasn't beating his ass like John was. Rick seems like a really genuinely nice person that was just trying to find himself. And he asked Truman, like, Truman was like, do you need money? And Rick was like, I told you, fixing ACs is real lucrative business. I got money. And then even Rick told Truman before he left, he said, don't let the monsters eat you, Truman. Don't let them get you. Truman, if Truman would have had better self esteem, he would have been okay. He would have been okay. So then we get this really sad scene of Truman drunk as hell on TV, and CZ is just watching him smoking just in, like, you can tell she's sad because she's realizing that Truman probably will never get the help that he's supposed to get, and he'll never be clean. And she just has tears rushing down her face as she just, and you can hear as he speaks about how, he was addicted to tranquilizers and all of this stuff. And it was sad. He high as hell on TV, and he shouldn't have been on TV making a fool of himself. And you can tell that CZ genuinely cares about Truman, and she just wants him to get better. So after that night of being on TV, the last scene we get is Truman actually writing chapter 20 of his book, where it's about friendship. And he basically just says in the book that, like, friendship is like being on a beach on a warm summer day. It's very comforting. It's very nice. And now that he no longer has these friends or these women around him, it's very cold and he actually misses them. And that's where the episode ends. I thought this episode was interesting, showing the duality of, like, high society being, like, weeded out. Like, the women are still high society, but they're like old high society. So it's kind of like they either get with the times or they get left behind. And same with Truman. And I think that's why they do the whole plastic surgery, because they still want to look youthful. But it's just interesting. So that's just my thoughts. So yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. Remember to be bravely authentic, and definitely hop down in them comments below. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.